Welcome to Blind Level Tech. I'm Jonathan Price.
I'm Evan Starnes.
And together, we're bringing you news, tech, and information about blind technologies.
Being blind doesn't mean you have to stop living.
We're going to show you just how possible it is to live the life you want. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great.
Yeah?
Yeah. We've already been talking about coin collecting and audio recording and...
Nice.
Yeah.
Very nice.
And if we want to check out my coin site, that's blindcoincollector.com.
Oh, let me write that down.
Close to the top, it's all about my travels. And if you go back to posts to 2013 to 15, you're going to find more along the lines of collecting, being totally blind.
That's so cool, though.
That's super cool.
Yeah, shoot me an email and I'll be happy to help you out with anything.
We had a couple months ago, we had Chloe Duplessis, who she is a brilliant artist, but she created a patch I think it's a coin, maybe it's on a coin, but she created this patch that has all sorts of braille stuff on it, tactile things, and that the coins thing remind me of her and some of the stuff that she's done. So it's very cool.
Yeah,
well, anyway,
interesting.
Welcome to Blind Level Tech, and thank you to all of our amazing listeners for putting BLT at the top of so many lists, or close to the top of a lot of lists. We're bringing in listeners left and right, and it's because of you guys that you're doing that. So if you have any feedback or suggestions, give us a shout out, feedback@aftersight.org, or give us a phone call, because we like to play your questions. We like to play your suggestions and all those types of things. So give us a call, 720-712-8856. Evan, what have you been up to this week?
Well, still kind of adjusting to getting the new place. I finally got my VPN fixed so I can work from home, which is going to be amazing. Unfortunately, the acoustics in this bedroom are not as good as the acoustics in the basement. There's a lot more like room tone in the background. You can definitely hear it. Well, actually, you can't hear it. Listeners can't hear it, but I can hear it, and it drives me nuts.
Yeah.
But no sense in noise treating the bedroom. If I really wanted some noise treatment, I could just hop in the closet.
You just need more furniture in there.
That's true. I got a couch. That's a big thing. Really, I think that's a huge thing for me. And then in some tech news, not personal news, there are a couple things I'd like to bring to people's attention here.
Please, let's do it.
Oh man, the biggest thing, Apple Incorporated has released the almost $3,500 Vision Pro headset.
Yep.
And I've already been checking out reviews on it, and this thing is mind-blowingly incredible. And it's got voiceover, I've heard, too. So one of these days, I'm going to have to pop over to an Apple store, and maybe they'll be kind enough to let me record a demo of it, because that would be pretty cool. It's cool. It's special. It's got this big old piece of glass on the front, a digital crown like an Apple Watch, and I just can't wait to try one. In other meh kind of news, Amazon they didn't exactly discontinue, but they kind of yoinked from under people's feet the guard features that are really useful, like the ability to listen for smoke and carbon monoxide and glass break sounds. Mm-hmm. I don't know why.
That's a major bummer.
Yep, and they're saying that it's only available to like emergency assist subscribers. So yeah, they basically were just like, they took this free service and turned it into a subscription, which is it's so stupid, because if you're like one of the people who doesn't have a job, the over 70% of people who are blind who don't have a job, you're asking those people to pay even more for a service that they should be getting for free. Right. And it's a useful service because it helps keep your home safe and more secure. And the last bit of, I don't know if we've shared this already, but Apple and Spotify have now added transcription abilities to their podcasts. So if you wanted to maybe follow along with us on your Braille display, or if you're deaf or hard of hearing and you'd like a transcript, you can do that now directly in the Spotify or Apple Podcasts apps.
Yeah, and to go along with that, Spotify has released their tabs feature, which kind of, instead of scrolling along the ticker at the bottom, you can actually scroll down and you can click on the readable chapters and you can skip directly to that chapter. So if we're talking about, like right now, tech and news, things like that, it'll take you right there. Or if you want to go and listen to our sandwich of the week and get an idea for lunch, then just skip over to that chapter. So it's pretty cool. Thank you for Apple and Spotify doing some of those cool things. We appreciate you guys and all that you do for podcast and music. Well,
absolutely.
I'm tired of just chit-chatting. We have an amazing guest. And Tom, how the heck are you, my friend?
Hello, everybody. Doing good. Thank you.
Good. Anything exciting happening this week?
Yes. I have a big announcement to make.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if we were going to talk about it, but now that you asked. So I started creating 3D buildings. So blind people can understand what the large buildings look like that you can't feel or touch because it's just way too big.
Awesome.
And together with descriptions, so it's all 3D printed, some 10 to 20 centimeters large. And I posted all kinds of descriptions how to interpret it when you hold this building. And actually, I'm going to announce it on LinkedIn in a couple of hours.
Oh, my goodness. Well, you heard it, I guess. By the time you hear this, it'll already have been out. But for timing's sake, as I'm recording this, I'm pretty sure this is the first time you've mentioned it. But I am really thankful that you mentioned that on our show. That'll be awesome for all of our listeners. Are you selling these, or are you?
I have to. It's not cheap to produce, but I actually got a relatively reasonable price. So. And until the 15th of February, I'm giving 20% off.
Awesome. Well, that's super cool.
And if I can plug in the URL, if people are interested.
Absolutely. Please. Yes.
It's evengrounds.com/3D-buildings.
All right. Sounds good.
And
we'll put
that's
that in
where
the
you'll
description.
find everything.
Absolutely. And I'll follow you on
Thank
LinkedIn.
you for asking.
Of course. Thank you for announcing that. And Tom, you, sir, have got an incredible story to tell, and I'm not going to tell it for you, but I'll give listeners just kind of a brief synopsis here. You know, you were born totally blind in Hungary, essentially told, go watch the geese, and maybe when you grow up, you'll be a massage therapist or a telephone operator or something else like that. And, you know, obviously you're like, no, that's not happening. But I'd like you to tell us what happened. You have a really cool college story where you essentially, well, I'm not going to say it for you, but you, it kind of started your journey into advocacy, which has been kind of your thing now. So
I think I know which one you mean. So yeah, that's how I started. And it wasn't me. It was more my parents who said that's not the way to live, and they were hoping that I can do a little more than that. So anyway, I got through high school, and actually, I was the first one in the family who got a college degree. But the story you're referring to was that we had a mandatory computer science class at the university. So I figured let's just get that out of the way. In the first semester, I enrolled to that. But then the entire thing was inaccessible. And I knew a lot about computers, and it was very basic stuff. But since it was mandatory, I offered it to the teacher that, look, you don't have to worry about accessibility. I'm not going to learn anything here. Tell me what I need to know, and I'm going to come at the end of the semester, and I'll take the exam. So I showed up at the end of the semester. Teacher was happy, didn't have to worry about me. I was happy because I didn't have to learn what I knew already. So I took the exam and I got a B. And he told me it's a B because I couldn't use the mouse.
Wow.
And I said, you gotta be kidding me. It's either an A plus or you're going to be at the dean's office this afternoon. So it was an A plus, but that was a bigger thing.
Yeah.
How are the rest of the blind people going to take this course who actually don't know much about computers and they need the knowledge that this course is teaching? So I went to the Hungarian Association of the Blind, and also the student advocacy organization at the university. And I explained the problem, and they told me, "Well, go ahead and solve it." That's all right. I'll teach a course that will teach exactly what the university expects. And so the Association of the Blind gave me the computers and gave me the room to teach the course. Anybody who enrolled to the computer science course at the university took my course. I gave them a grade at the end of semester, and that was the grade that the university gave them. And in the meantime, I was still studying there as a student. And that's how my accessibility advocacy started. And I felt, look, I could advocate for myself. I could advocate for others. So let's continue doing it. That's just the right thing, I felt.
How did the school react when you approached them about teaching this class? What was their inkling and bent?
Look, they were happy. They didn't want to deal with accessibility. They didn't want to deal with blind people in the first place. So I just took a problem off of their plate. So everybody was very cooperative.
That's really cool. And I want to pause real quick. Where are you calling from today?
I am calling from the Cleveland, Ohio area.
Okay, very cool. Very cool. Cleveland Browns did a pretty good job this year. And impressed. Sorry, go into sports. Anyway, okay.
But I remember that this was back in the mid-90s in a country that wasn't part of the European Union yet, when we just started talking about accessibility. Right? So the story is very different today. That it wouldn't be the case anymore.
Yeah, I'd imagine things are way more accessible now than they were. But you kind of started off some things there. You built the first, now correct me if I'm wrong, but the first of its kind Braille printer in Hungary.
As far as I know, yes, that one was the first. It wasn't really a Braille printer. We took a Brailler similar to the Perkins Brailler and then put it on top of a box. And in the box, there were 7 hooks that attached to the keys of the Brailler. And then we translated a document into computer Braille and sent it out to the printer, which knew which key to pull down, which hook to pull down based on which letter went out one by one. Wow. And when you got to the end of the line, you had to go to the new line and then push a button when it printed another line. And then you just went through the page. And yeah, that's how it worked. It was somewhat manual, but this was probably the fastest way of getting electronic documents into Braille.
That is mind-blowingly cool. You modified an old Perkins Braille writer to become a Braille embosser. That's
practically
incredible.
That's pretty cool.
I've seen this idea after that, so I wasn't alone. I didn't steal the idea, and nobody else did. But people came to the same conclusion. I can't remember which country. Somebody invented the same thing independently from us.
Dildo.
That's
we
just amazing.
Didn't know how to sell at the time, so that was the one and only copy, and I wasn't able to mass produce it. So that was unfortunately the end of that story.
Did you have people pounding down your door to get stuff printed?
Oh yeah.
Sure.
Did you make some good money off of them?
No, I didn't care about money those days.
Nice.
I honestly didn't.
Well, I want to transition to kind of what you're doing now. I'm excited for like your company and what you do. Can you tell our audience what you do, and then we'll move into how it's being presented?
So I am an accessibility consultant right now. My company is called Even Grounds. I have mostly done digital accessibility in my life, but I'm branching out farther. And I'm primarily working with organizations in the travel and tourism industry and making events and venues and locations accessible for people with disabilities, let that be digital or physical.
How do you do that?
So I work with a different organization and organizations and look at everything that they offer holistically. You know, how is their website? How is their entrance? If it's a museum, for example, do they have a tactile exhibit? If they have an audio tour, is it accessible for people who can't hear it? Right. So basically, I just look at all disabilities and check the organization holistically to make sure that they're all inclusive. And I would like to talk about inclusion instead of accessibility, because
yes, absolutely.
you have talked about universal design in the last show that I heard, and I was so happy to hear that, because I really feel that inclusion is much more than accessibility.
Absolutely.
And that's what we have to go for, because everybody has needs, and people have different needs given their situation or circumstance or just any momentary issue.
Yeah.
You know, and I like to look at digital or physical environment in a way that is it all inclusive to most people possible, because obviously you're not going to be fully inclusive for everybody whatsoever. It's not possible.
It's a good thing to strive for.
Yeah, exactly. That's all you can do. You know, you can't translate everything to 7,000 languages, right?
No, that take a while.
So right there, you're not going to be inclusive, but do you really have to?
Right.
No. Yeah.
Well, when you talk about the inclusion aspect, you know, we talked about in that episode making sure that you start everything from the ground up. And I kind of equate that to what you do when you talk with companies about their building design, their website design, things of that nature. And if you don't start with the end in mind, you're going to have to go back, and it can cost you a lot of time and a lot of money just to go back and do something that you should have been doing in the beginning.
Absolutely.
When you address companies who are looking at the advocacy and the inclusion aspect of it, I'm assuming that companies are coming to you, or you're going to companies. How does that work, and how do they react to their business either not being accessible or not being inclusive enough?
Look, I have to say that 90% of my work is patchwork. Working with something from something that wasn't fully inclusive or accessible in the first place, and now we need to fix it up. I mean, that's just the reality of life. That's why oftentimes companies come to me, either because they are worried about legal implications, or because they just learned about accessibility and they just want to do the right thing, but they don't know how to do it. And unfortunately, it's very rare that I get to work with organizations who want to build inclusion into it from the ground up. That would be my goal. I think that's much more useful. That's much more interesting, though helping somebody to fix it up is a nice challenge too.
Absolutely. So what actual particular businesses, if you will, need like the most work?
When it comes to websites, I think many businesses do. I spent a good amount of time recently with museums for several reasons. One is that, you know, I used to hate museums when I was a kid, because there was nothing to touch, and they told me that, oh, you shouldn't touch it. No, you shouldn't have brought me here. You know,
right? Yes,
Mom and Dad, thank you.
Yeah.
No, they were nice. They tried to show me as much, but oftentimes you couldn't touch things. You know, museum wasn't my thing. And even today, I'm finding that just by default, you go to a bunch of places and there's nothing you can or should touch. So the way I go around it is as an individual visitor, not as an accessibility consultant, but I call ahead and I ask them, is there anything to touch or enjoy for me in any way if I'm completely blind? And would you be willing to give me a tour? And the majority of the cases, it's a yes. And so the reason why I'm so interested in museums these days is because most museums have so much more to touch than they give themselves credit for. they may not be accessible. Their generic exhibit may not have enough. But I think if they just pull together all the resources that they have, they could make it very inclusive for blind people.
That's really interesting. What is some of the biggest things that go into making a museum, I guess, inclusive? I can assume it would be more tactile stuff and some audio stuff, but outside of those, what else can be done?
Well, you have other disabilities, right? So you probably want to do a silent room. You want to make sure that it's wheelchair accessible. You want to have large print there. But, I think the biggest thing is the willingness.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times people were willing and accommodated me. Legally, maybe that museum wasn't accessible, or they didn't do what they were supposed to do. But I never approach a company about what they don't have. I always like to look at what they already have, what's already accessible. There's going to be plenty of people who will, complain about the lack of accessibility. So I don't need to join that crowd. And they are right. They're absolutely right, because somebody should. But that's not what I do. I like to show them that, hey, you have more than you thought. Yeah. Now, can we build more on this?
That's really cool. I think about the museums here in Colorado. Excuse me. Yeah. And I don't know their level of accessibility because that's not really my area. And I do know that I think it's Evan, correct me if I'm wrong, the Denver Museum of Nature and Science has quite a few accessibility, I guess, displays or exhibits.
They do.
It's pretty amazing. Evan, you can talk more about that.
Yeah, like the Denver Museum of Nature and Science, they have a lot of like sensory things. So they have like different rock formations and things that you can touch. They even had, this was super memorable to me. They had a little thing that you could go and push a little button, and it had this little vent next to it. And you could smell, I think it was elk poop, something like that. Oh, wow. Yeah. And then they had the IMAX, of course, that naturally they had, the audio description headphones. Yeah. And I think they even had some Braille around the place too. But yeah, that was, as far as museums are concerned, that was a very accessible place. And usually the places that you really run into accessibility issues are like the little museums that you find around, your small towns or whatever, not your big, huge, I don't know.
So that's interesting that you bring this up, because I almost feel that it's the opposite.
Okay.
So in a way, I agree that those little museums, like historical societies, are by default not accessible. Yeah. But I also found that whenever I called them, they are the absolute most willing to help. I many times tried to big museums, they don't even respond. Like there is an accessibility page for a big museum just to, check off the legal requirements.
Yeah,
right.
For sure.
It doesn't talk about what they have in terms of accessibility, whether they do or not. And you have those little museums, they don't have an accessibility page, they don't have anything.
Yeah.
But when I travel to a new town, the first thing I call is a local historical society, because they have the coolest things locally. They have the people who are passionate about it. Generally, they are volunteers, and they always made it work for me. And I was always able to touch so many things that otherwise wouldn't be.
Huh, that is fascinating. The main reason I'd made that point is I'd actually gone to a little automotive history museum in Arizona, because I found vehicles, especially really old ones like classic cars, interesting. And the dude was just basically like, oh yeah, he just can get in for free. And then it was just kind of like walking around explaining everything, but I couldn't touch anything. And the attendant or the volunteer or whatever, he was touching everything. And it was,
I don't like free stuff.
Bummer. Yeah. I don't either.
I have no ground to complain,
No.
I want to pay and I want to enjoy it, you know?
Yeah, it's
like
kind of degrading when you're like, oh, he can go in for free. And when they don't talk to you directly, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
So outside of museums, what other types of buildings do you see that need a lot of help in the accessibility and inclusion arena?
Well, generally the old buildings.
Uh-huh.
And that's very problematic because, you know, you have to maintain the original building, and it's like a historical memory, while you really want to make sure that in the meantime it's wheelchair accessible, for example.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, without degrading or breaking or messing up the historical value of the place. Gotcha.
Right. I've been to many places that just weren't wheelchair accessible whatsoever.
So before we get into our final question and segment, is there anything that you want to leave the audience with in terms of if they want to contact you, or if just a final thought that you want everybody to be aware of?
Well, as a final thought, you know, try to think of the stuff that you never thought about before. Think out of the box, because life has so much interesting stuff to offer.
Yeah.
But they oftentimes don't tell you whether it's accessible or not. And it is more times than not. And I really encourage people to get out of your comfort zone and do something that you have never done before. You'll love it. And as far as contact, probably the easiest way to reach me is you can go to my website, evengrounds, EVENGROUNDS.com. And then there's a contact, there's an about section there. And from there, there's a link to my LinkedIn page, if that's where you would like to connect. And from there, you'll find me.
That's really cool. If people are having troubles with accessibility in buildings, where would they go? Would they contact the building itself, or the company, or would they contact you? What would be the best way for them to kind of speak up about an inaccessible environment?
I would certainly say that, you know, talk to the people who own the building, because they might be able to help you somehow immediately. But I'm always happy to mediate. If somebody's not comfortable doing that, they're welcome to get in touch with me. I'll talk with them. No, but just because you can't get into a building, it doesn't mean that they don't have the means of making it happen. Yeah. It might just unfortunately not be immediately available, or may not be available by default.
Sure. I love that. I think, well, I've really enjoyed this conversation, and we would be absolutely remiss because, Evan, you know what it's time for.
I do know what it's time for.
Sandwich of the week. All right. So, Tom, every week we do this segment called Sandwich of the Week, and we ask our guests what their favorite sandwich is. So, do you have a favorite sandwich?
Yes, that's what I'm going to eat for lunch.
Nice.
Ooh, nice.
What do we got? What are we eating?
Oh, yeah. It's rye bread.
Okay.
A thin layer of mustard.
Uh-huh.
And then a few slices of liverwurst.
Oh, boy.
And a little bit of thin slices of onions. And then another slice of rye bread. And that's my favorite.
That sounds like a very Hungarian dish.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I guess it has evolved a little bit. It's a little international, but yeah, could be. Yeah.
No, okay. Now, real quick, did you say if it was spicy mustard, brown mustard?
I guess you could do it with many, whatever I have at home usually. That's good.
I have an affinity for that spicy brown mustard. The with the mustard seeds, though, you can bite the mustard seeds. Oh man,
I love that. Yeah,
it's so good.
Right? Absolutely.
It's so good. Evan, you got a sandwich?
I actually do. Nothing special, but I made a sandwich last night, actually. Uh-huh. And this is actually my second attempt at this, but my grandma had given me some buns, not like pre-cut, like you actually had to, it was kind of like it looked like a breadstick. I don't know if it was French bread, but it was really crispy and
nice, yummy.
And so you kind of had to cut them down the middle in order to make them, more into like bread for a sandwich, but it's a meatball sub. So she basically gave me some big old meatballs, and I tried my first night making them. I kind of just shoved the half cut meatballs in, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a mess. So I actually found out if you cut those down into like little chunks and kind of rather than having whole meatballs in a meatball sub,
right? Yeah,
it actually makes it like so much more enjoyable, and it didn't fall apart on me at all. And it was like very compact, but it was a very good and very savory kind of. Had marinara and stuff, so consider it maybe Italian, but yeah, it was really good.
Nice. Very cool.
That sounds great.
Nice. I'm going to go the burger route because I have some pronghorn, and we grilled that up and made some burger patties. But this time we did some Swiss cheese on top with some mushrooms and onions, and kind of made it more of a savory burger rather than a barbecue or a spicy burger. It was just amazing. It was so good. The kids gobbled it up. It was so good. So, but anyway.
Absolutely.
Well, Tom, I want to thank you so much for being on the show, and now you are a friend of the show, so we'll have you back as often as you want to come back. So anytime you have news or updates, we'd love to hear it, and so we're very thrilled to have you on.
Well, thank you for the invitation. I appreciate it. It was a pleasure to chat with both of you, and honestly, I previously didn't know about the podcast, so now I do, and I'll listen to it regularly.
Share it out there. Get it out there.
Absolutely.
I will. Absolutely.
Evan, we've got a promotion going on. Can you tell our audience what that is?
Yes. So we got a special little promo going on right now. Recently, we've launched the podcast shoutouts, where folks can kind of leave a nice little personal message for a special someone on any of their favorite AfterSight originals. But now, because Valentine's Day is coming up pretty quick here, you can use the promo code LOVE, and that'll get you 50% off your shout out.
Yeah, and if you don't like Valentine's Day or you don't like love, then you can sign up to do a shout out on a different day. It could be a graduation, a holiday, whatever you want. And those promo codes will be coming out as we roll out past Valentine's Day. So as of when you hear this episode, you may be under a time crunch to get your loved one a message out, but don't worry. You can do those shout outs throughout the year, and we'll have different promo codes. So,
absolutely.
We're super excited to be rolling those out. Check out our merch store, aftersight.org. And if you have any feedback or comments or want to ask us a question, feedback at aftersight.org is the email address, and 720-712-8856 is the phone number. Evan, any final thoughts from you?
Nope. That's about it for me.
Fantastic. Well, on behalf of the entire AfterSight family, Evan Starnes, I'm Jonathan Price. Thank you for tuning in to Blind Level Tech.
Don't forget to plug in your devices.